On Friday, September 13th, Chinese e-commerce giants Shein and Temu faced what could be described as their own Black Friday. The Biden administration announced new measures to limit duty-free entry of low-value goods into the US. This effectively closes a loophole that platforms like Temu, owned by Pinduoduo and Shein, have taken advantage for many years. The new rules removed so-called de minimis exemption for goods valued under $800 in certain cases, including 70% of Chinese textiles and apparel imports. On the same day, Pinduoduo's stock dropped by 2.4%. Currently, the de minimis exemptions allows packages worth less than $800 to enter the US with little scrutiny. The White House estimates that in the last decade, the number of these packages has surged from 140 million to over a billion. A report from Congress revealed that about one-third of these packages come from fast fashion retailer Shein and cross-border platforms Temu. E-commerce platforms like Temu, Shein, and some sellers on Amazon have used the de minimis exemption to bring large amounts of products into the US duty-free. This also lets them save on domestic warehousing costs. Originally, the exemption aimed to simplify imports of personal and small batch goods, easing the burden on consumers and small businesses. However, some companies have exploited it, raising concerns about trade fairness. The White House outlined a three-part plan: removing exemptions. Products affected by tariffs under Section 201 and 301 of the 1974 Trade Act and Section 232 of the 1962 Trade Expansion Act will no longer qualify for the de minimis exemption. Data from the U.S. Treasury Department shows that about 40% of U.S. imports are subject to tariffs under Section 301, with 70% of textile and apparel imports coming from China. Tighter scrutiny. The new rules require more detailed information for exempted goods such as a 10-digit tariff code and importer identity. The rules also clarify who can qualify for the exemption. Higher standards. Importers will be required to electronically submit certificates of compliance, COC, for goods under the de minimis threshold. These submissions must be sent to both U.S. Customs and the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, upon entry into the U.S. These changes would test the profit margins of Shein and Temu. Analysts warn that Shein could face price increases of up to 20%, which could weaken its ability to compete with traditional retailers like H&M and Zara. Navdesh Dhillon, Deputy Director of the National Economic Council, said the government is acting to protect American consumers. He added that the move would also create a fair playing field for U.S. workers, manufacturers, and retailers. Dhillon emphasized that foreign companies need to follow the U.S. laws to ensure the safety of American families. Officials noted that the Biden administration's crackdown on low-cost trade exemptions aims to reduce the volume of such goods. Sensitive imports, particularly textiles and apparels, could be handled more carefully and with greater caution. The administration plans to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking before the end of Biden's term. Final rules will be completed in the coming months, with input from Congress. According to Radio France Internationale, the White House hopes to use this policy change to reduce tariff evasion and stop fentanyl-laced goods from entering the U.S. The U.S. government has expressed concerns that the growing number of low-value shipments makes it harder to detect and stop illegal or dangerous deliveries. This has led to a rise in the influx of counterfeit and hazardous goods. Earlier, 126 Democratic lawmakers urged President Biden to use his exclusive power to target Chinese e-commerce retailers. They were frustrated by Congress' inaction and called for immediate action. In their letter, Democratic representatives wrote, "The urgency of closing the de minimis loophole cannot be overstated. Americans continue to die from mislabeled fentanyl-laced pills that are ordered online, skirt in sections thanks to the de minimis, and are delivered to Americans' doorsteps." Officials pointed out that the Congress created the de minimis rules in the 1970s to make it easier to import goods under the certain value. This was meant to avoid putting unnecessary administrative cost on the U.S. government. However, the policy has allowed unsafe products and banned substances to enter the country with little oversight. In the letter, the representative criticized how some Americans continue to buy fentanyl pills through cross-border e-commerce. These small packages, often mislabeled, avoid customs check. Meanwhile, the flood of cheap Shein products has led to U.S. textile factories shutting down. In recent months, 18 factories have closed, causing hundreds of American workers to lose their jobs. The rapid growth of China's cross-border e-commerce industries can be largely credited to policy supporting export trade. The government has provided tax breaks, subsidies, and relaxed regulations to encourage the development of cross-border e-commerce. Since 2014, cross-border e-commerce has been mentioned in China's government work report for 11 years in a row, seen as a key driver of foreign trade growth. Since 2015, Chinese authorities have set up 165 cross-border e-commerce pilot zones. In these zones, retail exports exempt from VAT and consumption tax and income tax incentives are offered. During the US-China trade war in 2018, China cut export taxes for domestic exporters to counter Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. In addition, local governments in cities like Hangzhou and Shenzhen, known for cross-border e-commerce, have rolled out incentive programs. In February 2022, Hangzhou offered grants for up to 2 million yuan to cross-border e-commerce businesses. Companies promoting their brands through social media, search engines, or cross-border live streams could get up to 25% of their promotional cost covered. Shenzhen's 2023 subsidies for cross-border e-commerce startups could reach up to 450,000 yuan. According to China's state media outlet Xinhua, cross-border e-commerce's share of China's foreign trade grew from less than 1% to about 5% over the past 5 years. From January to September 2023, cross-border e-commerce imports and exports reached 1.7 trillion yuan, a 14.4% increase compared to the last year. The COVID-19 pandemic from 2020 to 2022 changed global consumer behavior, driving demands for online shopping and fueling explosive growth in business-to-consumer cross-border e-commerce. Platforms like AliExpress, Shein, and Temu began to expand rapidly. After 2022, China's cross-border e-commerce companies went global, with domestic brands entering foreign markets in large numbers and small to medium-sized businesses rushing to use e-commerce platforms. Temu, owned by Pinduoduo, has replicated its domestic business model overseas. It exports products with extremely competitive prices, benefiting from China's supply chain. For example, you can find a $2.99 US air fryer or a pack of 10 pairs of socks for $1.87 on Temu. Data shows that Temu's clothing, shoes, and household items are priced at 30 to 50% lower than its competitors. Since its launch in the US in September 2022, Temu has become the most downloaded iPhone app in the US in 2023. According to Sensor Tower, by January 2024, Temu had more than 50 million monthly active users in the US, a 300 year-on-year growth, with the app downloaded over 123 million times. Temu's aggressive promotion was most evident during the 2023 Super Bowl, where it aired 2 30-second ads. This year, Temu doubled its ad spending, securing more slots to air 6 times during the Super Bowl. After its success in the US, Temu has expanded to 50 countries and regions worldwide. In comparison, Shein entered the US market a decade ago, establishing itself firmly there. According to Consumer Edge, Shein now holds a 40% market share, making it the largest fast fashion brand in the US. At the end of 2023, shipping consultancy ShipMatrix reported that fast-growing platforms Shein and Temu were shipping about 1 million packages per day in the US, with numbers continuing to rise. Last year, the US House Select Committee on China's released a report stating that Shein and Temu may account for over 30% of all packages entering the US under the low-value duty-free exemption. They could also be responsible for nearly half of all small parcels shipped from China to the US. The committee's data showed that in 2022, Gap paid $700 million in import tariffs, H&M paid $205 million, and David's Bridal paid up $19.5 million. However, Shein and Temu paid no import taxes. Temu, known for its ultra-low prices, has drawn attention not only in the US but also in the European Union. The Financial Times reported on July 3rd that the European Commission is drafting plans to impose tariffs on low-cost goods from Chinese online retailers like Temu, Shein, and AliExpress. According to unnamed sources in the report, the European Commission plans to propose removing the current €150, about $161 duty-free threshold later this month. Under current rules, packages purchased online from non-EU countries worth less than €150 are exempt from tariffs. Data shows that the EU imported 2.3 billion items under the €150 duty-free threshold in 2023. E-commerce imports more than doubled compared to the previous year, with over 350,000 shipments in April alone, equal to nearly 2 deliveries per household. The European Commission said this flood of packages is stretching customs to its limits. The Financial Times noted that removing the duty-free threshold is part of the EU's customs reform project. The Commission made this proposal last year and may speed up implementation to handle the surge in cheap imports. However, an official warned that it could be difficult to get approval from EU member states, as a new system would increase customs' already heavily workload. Another issue is a rise in dangerous goods. In 2023, EU countries reported over 3,400 hazardous items, a 50% increase from 2022. The products most often flagged for safety concerns were cosmetics, toys, electrical appliances, and clothing. European toy makers have accused Chinese retailers of shipping unsafe toys to Europe. In February, the Toy Industry of Europe Association reported buying 19 toys from Temu, none of which met EU safety standards. Temu responded saying product safety is a top concern and that this has strengthened oversight of these products and their requirements. With more than 45 million users, Temu was classified as a very large online platform under the EU's Digital Services Act (DSA) in May. This means that by September 2024, Temu must comply with the strictest rules under the Act, including assessing and mitigating systematic risks. Since the DSA took effect last year, the EU has classified over 20 tech companies as VLOPs, or very large online platforms, including Amazon, AliExpress, fashion platforms like Shein, Zalando, and social media platforms like Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Google Search. Other online services operating in the EU must also meet the general requirements of the law. Companies found violating the Act can face fines of up to 6% of their global revenue. Regarding the EU's proposal to remove the duty-free threshold, Alibaba, which owns AliExpress, Shein, Temu, and the European Commission did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. Data security is another concern for Chinese e-commerce platforms. Temu and others rely on collecting large amounts of data, including consumer search and click activity. While Temu claims it protects personal data and stores European customs data in Europe, security from Joe Sandbox labeled Temu a malicious app. On May 16, a European consumer group accused Temu of using manipulative tactics that violates EU online platform rules. The group said Temu failed to provide key information about sellers, leading consumers to spend more than intended or making it difficult to close their accounts. U.S. economist Davey J. Wong told overseas Chinese media that Chinese cross-border e-commerce platforms have been secretly collecting user data for years. According to him, these companies steal, misuse, and sell user data without respecting privacy or following legal standards. Wong added that these platforms likely take even more aggressive approach when dealing with foreign users. He believes they are leaking, misusing, and selling large amounts of personal and financial data from users in Europe and in the US, which poses serious risk to personal and national security. Fast fashion platforms like Shein depend heavily on algorithms and user data. By analyzing different consumer groups such as race, age, and income levels, they predict trends in styles, fabrics, and designs. This information is then used to guide factories in producing the items consumers are likely to want. Shein is known as an ultra-fast fashion brand because it takes this data-driven approach to the extreme. The company is considered a super client, using digital management to integrate all suppliers into a system. From design and manufacturing to inventory and logistics, everything is managed in real time. Indian media reported on March 24 that Shein launches 7,200 new items every day, over 900 times more than traditional French fashion brands. Shein's extensive data collection has raised concerns about supply chain security. According to CNBC, Ram Ben-Tizion, CEO of global trade digital audit platform Publican, warned that Shein could potentially misuse supply chain and consumer data. A recent report by supply chain intelligence firm 0100 praised Shein's ultra-flexible supply chain as one of its key strengths. The company works with over 5,400 factories near Guangzhou for small batch production, allowing it to shorten the time from design to delivery, reduce production costs, and minimize inventory risk. Under the leadership of the founder, Chris Xu, who has a deep understanding of SEO and online marketing, Shein has adopted a data-driven strategy to fuel its growth. 0100 highlighted that Shein uses real-time AI data to dynamically match supply and demand, discover trends, and select suppliers through algorithms. This AI output is fed back into the system to make decisions across the entire value chain. While Shein's supply chain efficiency has been praised, Ben Tizion warned that small manufacturers and social media influencers should understand that China's push to make Shein a logistic company is a way to shift responsibility for trade practices onto small business owners. Using Shein for logistics meaning giving up control of both the supply chain and consumer relationships. By relying on a third party like Shein for manufacturers and productions, you're giving them full access to your company's information as well as data on your consumer and their shopping habits, he said. Shein, originally founded in Nanjing, moved its headquarters to Singapore in 2022 for regulatory and financial reasons, but its supply chain and warehouses remain in China. Head of Transportation and Innovation at the Chertoff Group, Li K, told CNBC that companies with significant Chinese ownerships and operations are concerned about China's legal framework. Chinese law requires companies to cooperate with the government on sensitive information related to US citizens. Even with its headquarters in Singapore, Shein's supply chain data could be still seized by the Chinese government. Kerr added that the fast fashion industry's heavy integration of logistics systems could be exploited, leading to the leakage of customer data or compromising other connected systems. Dewardrick McNeil, managing director of Longview Global and a former expert on Asia policy for the U.S. Department of Defense, warned that allowing Shein to embed its technology into U.S. supply chains could disrupt competition, violate regulatory standards, and pose cybersecurity risks. Some believe that the low-price strategy of Chinese cross-border e-commerce platforms has reshaped the global online retail market. However, new policies could lead to higher air freight costs and potential import tariffs for platforms like Shein and Temu. This would increase their operating cost, making it harder to maintain the ultra-low prices and reducing their advantage over traditional retailers like Amazon, H&M, and Zara. Changes in US and EU policies could reshape the competitive landscape for e-commerce, creating new challenges, or for platforms that rely on low prices and opening up more opportunities for local retailers.